When my sister-in-law found out I was pregnant, she tried to take over our home. In the end, she hurt her own mother and now faces a restraining order. On the channel you will find even more interesting stories. Subscribe and like. I'm Emily, 29, and I've been married to Ethan, 31, for 3 years. We first met 6 years ago at a friend's barbecue, and it felt like a scene straight out of a rom-com. He accidentally spilled his drink on me. I laughed it off, and somehow, that led to a conversation that lasted for hours. We dated for 3 years before tying the knot, and those years were some of the happiest of my life. Ethan is everything I ever wanted in a partner: kind, supportive, and someone who truly understands me in a way no one else ever has. Both of us have full-time jobs. I'm a graphic designer at an ad agency, and Ethan teaches high school history. Our evenings together are sacred. We love cooking dinner as a team, testing out new recipes we find online, then unwinding with our favorite shows. It's a simple routine, but it's ours, and I wouldn't trade it for anything. After we got married, we faced a big decision: where to live. We had been renting a small apartment but wanted something more permanent. That's when Ethan suggested we move into his childhood home. His father, Robert, had passed away from cancer 5 years earlier, leaving his mother, Eileen, now 58, living alone in the large 2-story house. At first, I had my doubts. Living with in-laws can be complicated, and I worried about maintaining privacy and boundaries. But as Ethan explained, it started to make sense. The house was spacious, giving us the entire upstairs while Eileen stayed on the ground floor. It was a practical solution. Eileen would have company, we'd have our own space, and we could save money for the future. Eileen turned out to be a wonderful housemate. She's a retired librarian who spends her days reading or tending to her garden. From the start, she reassured us that she respected our privacy and wouldn't intrude. She even joked about installing a bell at the bottom of the stairs so we'd hear if she was coming up, though we assured her that wasn't necessary. For months, everything was perfect. Ethan and I had settled into a comfortable rhythm. Mornings were peaceful, with the occasional kitchen encounter as Eileen brewed her tea while we grabbed a quick breakfast before work. Some evenings, we'd all share dinner together, exchanging stories about our day. It truly felt like we were creating a warm, supportive family dynamic. But then, Lauren got involved. Ethan's sister, Lauren, 33, had always been close to him. Despite the 2-year age gap, he often spoke fondly of their childhood adventures and how she'd always been protective of him. I was eager to get to know her better when Ethan first introduced us, hoping we'd build a good relationship. But things didn't quite go the way I expected. I had hoped to gain a sister, the one I never had. But from the moment we met, Lauren made it clear that wasn't going to happen. At first, I assumed she was just reserved or needed time to warm up to me. But as months passed, it became obvious. Lauren simply didn't like me. She had a way of slipping passive-aggressive remarks into conversations, always delivered with a sugary smile that made it nearly impossible to call her out without seeming overly sensitive. Whether it was a comment about my outfit or a jab at my job, she never missed an opportunity to make me feel unwelcome. Lauren is married to Tom, 35, and they have 2 kids, a 7-year-old son and a 5-year-old daughter. They live in a quiet suburban neighborhood about 20 minutes away. Despite having her own household to run, Lauren visits her mother almost daily. At first, I thought it was sweet. She seemed devoted to Eileen. But it didn't take long to realize that her frequent visits had little to do with motherly concern. She wasn't just stopping by to chat, she was monitoring us, making sure she still had control over what happened in the house. About 6 months after we moved in, I came home early from work, feeling under the weather. The last thing I expected was to find Lauren upstairs, rummaging through our things. Stunned, I asked her what she was doing. She barely hesitated before claiming she was looking for an old family photo album. But I knew that was a lie. Ethan and I had already sorted through all of Eileen's old pictures when we moved in, neatly arranging them in the living room bookshelf downstairs. That moment sparked our first real fight. Lauren, rather than apologizing, launched into a critique of how we kept our space. She called it messy, accused me of not knowing how to maintain a proper home. I was hurt but did my best to stay calm. I explained that Ethan and I both worked full-time, and while we did our best to keep things tidy, our home wasn't going to look like a staged showroom at all times. That was all it took to set her off. Lauren's voice rose as she called me lazy, saying I didn't deserve to live in her family home. And then, with a smug look, she went even further. She claimed that one day, Ethan would realize how worthless I was and throw me out. Her words cut deep. I had always treated Lauren with kindness, even when she was distant, hoping we could build some kind of bond. Hearing her say something so cruel felt like a slap to the face. That evening, when I told Ethan what had happened, he was furious. He refused to believe his sister would behave that way, until he confronted her the next day. When Lauren arrived for her usual visit, Ethan pulled her aside. She tried to dismiss everything, insisting I had exaggerated the whole situation. But Ethan wasn't buying it. He told her, in no uncertain terms, that if she couldn't respect me, she wasn't welcome in our part of the house. Instead of backing down, Lauren doubled down. She began spreading rumors about me to the rest of the family, twisting the narrative to make me look like the villain. She told their aunts and uncles that I was driving a wedge between Ethan and his family, that I was manipulating him, changing him, turning him against them. It was infuriating and heartbreaking. I had always made an effort to be polite and considerate with Ethan's relatives. Now, thanks to Lauren's lies, I found myself constantly on the defensive. The tension finally exploded during Thanksgiving last year. We had volunteered to host dinner for both of our families, and I had spent days preparing, determined to make it a special occasion. But Lauren had no intention of letting the night go smoothly. I had hoped everything would go perfectly, thinking a family gathering could help smooth things over with Lauren. I even asked Eileen for some of their family recipes to include in the Thanksgiving meal. Things were going well until Lauren showed up, unexpectedly bringing 3 friends along. We hadn't invited them, and there wasn't enough food to accommodate everyone. When I explained this to Lauren calmly, she exploded, accusing me of being selfish and unwelcoming. The argument that followed was heated, with Lauren screaming that I was trying to take over the family and push her out. She even accused me of manipulating Eileen to turn her against her. I was left in tears, and Ethan was furious. He eventually asked Lauren and her friends to leave, which only made her angrier. After that, Lauren started demanding that we sell the house and split the proceeds. She argued it was unfair that we were living there rent-free while she had to pay for her own home. We tried to explain that we contributed to household expenses and helped care for Eileen, but Lauren wouldn't listen. She was convinced I was taking advantage of the situation. The tension escalated when Lauren started spreading lies about me and attempting to turn Eileen against us. She even started showing up at my workplace, causing embarrassing scenes in front of my colleagues. Just last week, my boss pulled me aside to ask if everything was okay at home, which was mortifying. Ethan and I have discussed the idea of moving out, but we don't want to leave Eileen alone, and we love the house. It holds so many memories, especially of Ethan's dad. Over the years, we've built our own memories here, and the thought of leaving because of Lauren's behavior feels like letting her win. I've tried everything to make peace with Lauren. I've invited her for coffee, sent thoughtful birthday and Christmas gifts, and even offered to babysit her kids in hopes of building a better relationship, but nothing has worked. She seems determined to hate me no matter what I do. Ethan has been incredibly supportive, but I can see how this family conflict is weighing on him. He's torn between his love for me and his bond with his sister. I don't want to be the cause of a rift between them, but I can't keep living under this constant attack. Eileen has tried to stay neutral, which sometimes feels worse, as her silence seems like tacit approval of Lauren's actions. Ethan has suggested family therapy, but Lauren refuses, claiming I'm the one who needs help, not her. I love Ethan more than anything, and I desperately want this to work, but I'm starting to wonder if it's even possible with Lauren in the picture. Has anyone dealt with a similar issue with their in-laws? How did you handle it? I'm looking for some advice on how to improve this situation without completely ruining my relationship with Ethan's family. I'm really worried that if things don't change soon, it could cause irreparable damage to my marriage, and that's the last thing I want. Update 1. It's been about 2 months since my last post, and a lot has changed. First, I want to express my gratitude for all the supportive comments and advice I received. They really helped me gain a new perspective on the situation and gave me the confidence to take action. After a lot of discussions, Ethan and I decided it was time to confront Lauren directly. We realized that trying to please her or just ignoring the issue wasn't helping, and it was clear we needed to address everything head-on. We began by sitting down with Eileen and having an open, honest conversation about everything that had been happening. To our surprise, Eileen was more aware of the situation than we thought. She admitted that Lauren had been venting about me to her for months, but Eileen hadn't believed most of what Lauren said. She explained that she felt caught between her children, not knowing how to handle the situation without upsetting either of us. Eileen also revealed something that helped explain Lauren's behavior. Apparently, Lauren had always struggled with change. When Ethan left for college, it really affected her, and Eileen suspected that Lauren's issues with me were due to a fear of losing her place in the family. This conversation with Eileen was a turning point. She suggested we have a family meeting to clear the air, and while we were initially hesitant, fearing it would turn into another argument, we agreed that it might be the best way to address everything openly. So, last weekend, we invited Lauren and Tom over for dinner to have that talk. The days leading up to the meeting were full of tension. I spent hours cleaning the house, trying to make everything perfect so Lauren wouldn't have anything to criticize. Ethan was on edge, caught between hoping for the best and bracing for the worst. Eileen kept herself busy by preparing Lauren's favorite dessert, hoping it would help ease the situation. When Lauren and Tom finally arrived, the tension was palpable. We made awkward small talk over dinner, everyone avoiding the real issue. After we finished eating, Ethan cleared his throat and suggested we move to the living room to talk. The conversation began on a tense note, with Lauren immediately getting defensive, accusing me of trying to take over her family. I took a deep breath, reminding myself of all the advice I had received, and calmly explained how hurtful and unfair her behavior had been. I took a deep breath and started sharing specific instances of Lauren's actions and how they had impacted me, keeping my tone even and free from accusations. Ethan supported me wholeheartedly, telling Lauren that the way she treated me was not acceptable. He reminded her of all the times I had reached out to build a relationship with her, only to be shut down or belittled. It was difficult for him, but I could see he was resolute in standing by my side. Then, unexpectedly, Tom spoke up. He'd always been quiet during family gatherings, and I realized I barely knew him, despite us being in-laws for 3 years. He admitted that Lauren's fixation on her childhood home and her hostility towards me had created real problems in their marriage. He shared that Lauren had been spending more time at Eileen's house than at their own, neglecting their children in the process. Tom looked drained as he spoke, and I couldn't help but feel sympathy for him. Lauren seemed stunned by what Tom revealed. She broke down in tears, confessing that she felt like she was losing her place in the family. She admitted to being jealous of the bond one had with Ethan and felt threatened by my presence in her childhood home. Through her tears, she explained how difficult it had been for her to see changes in the house, new paint colors we chose, rearranged furniture, and photos of Ethan and me on the walls. To her, each change felt like erasing a part of her childhood. While I understood her emotions, I made it clear that her actions were hurtful and inappropriate. We had a long, emotional conversation about boundaries, respect, and family dynamics. Lauren revealed how hard it was for her when Ethan left for college and how she had always envisioned raising her own children in their childhood home. I shared my own feelings of never being fully accepted by her and how her actions had made me feel unwelcome in the space that was supposed to be mine as well. By the end of the night, Lauren apologized for her behavior, and we agreed to take a fresh start. It wasn't a sudden fix. Years of unresolved tension wouldn't vanish overnight, but it felt like progress. We laid out some ground rules. Lauren would call ahead before visiting and respect our privacy in our part of the house. We would have regular family dinners to foster positive connections. Lauren would stop making negative comments about me to other family members, and we all agreed to communicate openly and honestly about our feelings and concerns. Lauren also agreed to consider therapy to work through her difficulties with change and adjusting to shifting family dynamics. It's only been a week since that conversation, but I've already noticed a shift. Lauren has been more considerate when she visits, calling ahead as promised. She even invited Ethan and me over for. Lauren invited us to dinner at her place, which was the first sign of her making an effort. The dinner itself was a bit awkward, but it was nice to see that she was trying. Eileen seemed relieved that things were moving in a better direction. She appeared more at ease and even mentioned the idea of taking a vacation, something she hadn't done since Robert passed away. I think she feels less pressured now that we're all communicating better and she's not caught in the middle as much. Since the family meeting, Ethan and I have had many deep conversations. He's expressed guilt for not realizing how deep Lauren's issues went and for not standing up for me sooner. We're working through it together, and if anything, this whole ordeal has brought us closer. I'm cautiously hopeful about the future and this new dynamic. I know it will take time to rebuild trust and create a positive relationship with Lauren, but I'm trying to remain optimistic. There are still moments when I feel cautious around her, waiting for the other shoe to drop, but I'm doing my best to approach our interactions with an open mind and heart. We're planning a family outing next weekend, an old-fashioned picnic in the park where Ethan and Lauren used to play as kids. It was Lauren's idea, and I'm choosing to see it as a good sign. I'm nervous but hopeful. I'll keep you all posted on how things go. Thank you again for all your support and advice. It's been a tough journey, but I'm hopeful that we're on the right path to becoming a real family. Update 2. It's been about 3 months since my last update, and I wish I had better news to share. Initially, things seemed to be improving with Lauren. She was respecting our boundaries, and we even managed to have a few pleasant family dinners together. The picnic I mentioned in my last post went surprisingly well. Lauren shared funny stories from her and Ethan's childhood, and for the first time, I felt like I was starting to see the sister Ethan had always described. However, about a month ago, everything took a turn for the worse. It all started when Ethan and I announced we were expecting our first child. After months of trying, we were overjoyed when we finally got a positive test result. We decided to share the news at a family dinner, thinking everyone would be happy for us. Eileen was thrilled right away, talking about knitting booties and setting up a nursery in the spare room downstairs. But Lauren's reaction was unexpected. At first, she offered a tight smile and congratulated us, but as the days passed, her behavior became increasingly strange. She began showing up unannounced at the house again, often at odd hours. One night, she rang the doorbell at 11 p.m., claiming she'd had a bad dream and needed to check on Eileen. Another time, she appeared at 6 a.m. on a Saturday, saying she was just in the neighborhood and wanted to stop by. Things took a turn when Lauren started showing up at odd times, uninvited. One morning, she popped by for breakfast, but when I confronted her, she claimed she was just checking on Mom, even though Eileen was perfectly fine. The situation got worse when Lauren began rearranging furniture in our space, saying she was baby-proofing. But to me, it felt more like an attempt to assert control over our home. She moved things around, insisting that certain arrangements would be safer for a baby, and went through our kitchen cabinets, lecturing us about dangerous cleaning products. When I asked her to stop, she accused me of being hormonal and ungrateful. She said she was just trying to help and that I clearly didn't know anything about raising children. It was as though all the progress we had made in the past months had been undone in an instant. The final straw came when I came home early from work due to morning sickness and found Lauren going through our bedroom closet. She claimed she was looking for some old baby clothes that Eileen had stored there, but I knew that wasn't true. We had already sorted through everything when we moved in. I asked her to leave, trying to remain calm, but instead of leaving, she became frantic. She started shouting that this was her family's house, and I had no right to ask her to leave. Then she went as far as saying that she should be the one having a baby in this house, not me. She raged about how she grew up there, how she had always imagined raising her own kids there, and how unfair it was that I was taking over her family home. When Ethan got home and saw the scene, he was furious. He told Lauren, very firmly, that she needed to leave and not come back until she could respect our boundaries. Lauren left in tears, but not before threatening that we would regret this. Since then, Lauren has been calling Eileen nonstop, trying to turn her against us. She's telling Eileen that we're pushing her out of the family and don't want her to be involved in the baby's life. On top of that, she's been posting passive-aggressive comments on social media about fake family and homewreckers. Eileen is once again caught in the middle, torn between her love for all of her children, including the one on the way. She's trying to mediate, but the stress is clearly affecting her. Ethan and I are worried about how this is impacting her health. We're at a crossroads. We love this house and don't want to leave Eileen, but we're seriously considering moving out for our own mental well-being and for the sake of our unborn child. We're concerned about the stress it's causing the baby and don't want our child growing up in this toxic environment. We plan to talk to Eileen again, hoping she'll understand where we're coming from. We've started to seriously consider encouraging Lauren to seek professional help. Her behavior seems to have gone beyond typical sibling rivalry or just resistance to change, and it's becoming clear that there might be deeper issues involved. If things don't improve, we might have to make the incredibly difficult decision to move out. The thought of leaving this home breaks our hearts, but our baby's well-being has to take precedence now. I'll keep you all updated as things progress. Thank you once again for all your support during this challenging time. Update 3. It's been 6 weeks since my last update, and things have taken a significant turn. I'm 20 weeks pregnant now, and we recently learned we're having a little girl. While this news should be exciting, the situation with Lauren has continued to worsen. After our last confrontation, her behavior became even more erratic. She started sending us late-night emails that alternated between long, tearful apologies and angry accusations. One moment she was begging for forgiveness, the next, she was blaming me for destroying her family. She began showing up at our workplaces unannounced, making scenes and embarrassing us in front of our colleagues. My boss had to ask her to leave twice, and I was mortified. But everything came to a head 2 weeks ago. Ethan and I had just returned from a doctor's appointment where we had our 20-week scan. We were excited to show Eileen the ultrasound pictures, but when we walked in, we found Lauren in the kitchen, making dinner like nothing was wrong. Eileen was sitting at the table, looking visibly uncomfortable. When we asked what was going on, Lauren nonchalantly told us that she had decided to move back in to help take care of Eileen and the baby. We were stunned. Ethan immediately told her that wasn't happening, but Lauren wouldn't listen. She started going on about how this was her family home and she had more of a right to be there than I did. In the heat of the moment, she revealed that she had been planning to move in for weeks and had already started moving her things into the basement. That's when Eileen finally spoke up. She confessed that Lauren had been pressuring her to agree to this plan, even threatening to cut off contact if Eileen didn't comply. Eileen had been too afraid of saying no, but it was clear she was deeply distressed by the whole situation. Seeing how upset his mother was seemed to ignite something in Ethan. He calmly, but firmly, told Lauren that she needed to leave immediately, or he would be calling the police. Lauren completely lost control, screaming and throwing things in a fit of rage. In the chaos, she accidentally knocked into Eileen, causing her to fall and hit her head on the kitchen counter. The following hours were a blur of paramedics, police, and hospital waiting rooms. Thankfully, Eileen's injury turned out to be a mild concussion, but it was a serious wake-up call for all of us. At the hospital, we discovered that Lauren had been battling some mental health struggles and had recently stopped her medication without consulting her doctor. While this explained some of her erratic actions, it didn't justify them. After this incident, we've had to make some difficult decisions. For our safety and that of our unborn child, we've reluctantly filed for a restraining order against Lauren. It's heartbreaking, but we can't afford to take any chances. Eileen has agreed to start therapy to help her work through this situation and establish healthier boundaries with Lauren. We've also reached out to Lauren's husband, Tom, who's been supportive and regretful about everything. Together, we're ensuring Lauren gets the help she needs. After much thought, we've decided to stay in the house for now. Eileen needs our support, and we don't want Lauren's actions to force us to uproot everything. We're transforming the basement into a small, independent living space for Eileen, so she can have her own space while staying close to us. The past few months have been incredibly challenging, but we're hopeful these changes will help bring peace. We're focusing on preparing for our little girl's arrival and creating a nurturing, stable home for her. We can't thank you enough for the support you've shown us during this tough time. Your words and advice have given us strength. We're ready for this next chapter, hoping it's full of happiness and far less turmoil.